What's up, beautiful people? Welcome to tonight's live real estate podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about why buying homes actually trump renting, right? So, this is my first episode. If I get jittery, guys, it's because I'm a little bit nervous, okay? So, I'm going to tell y'all right now, I haven't done a live in a minute. Um, but also, we're going to jump into it as far as why um, if you're a homeowner, you should think about the difference between renting and buying and why, like I said, home ownership can actually trump you renting all the time. Now, when it comes to it, you're going to have to make your decision. And I always tell people numbers matter, right? So you have to go over the numbers. If the numbers make sense for you, then by all means. But by me going through this, you're going to see that sometimes we overlook the little things that we don't think about, and the numbers make a lot of sense. But it's us to pull the trigger on it because sometimes it could be scared, you being scared to actually make that leap. Sometimes it's a mental block, you growing up, seeing your family renting all the time. Sometimes it's just you saying, yo, you know what? I want the freedom, but you can actually have the freedom of owning because there's strategies. And once you go in purchasing a house with strategy, then you will be fine. But if you just purchase a house without a strategy, then you could end up where you feel like you're stuck and you have nowhere to go. So tonight, we're going to jump into it. I'm going to go over 5 things, right? We could go over a lot. We could talk about why renting is better than owning a home, right? But we could also talk about that. But that's a different mindset. We are talking about how we can build wealth and change the dynamics of our future. So, with that, we're going to talk about the first thing, the obvious thing, right? And it's going to be building wealth, building equity, right? We're building equity. And how we're building equity. For one, look at it like this: when you rent a house, when you rent an apartment, what happens? Do you get anything back at the end of the year? You don't get nothing back, do you? Name one thing that you get back. If you could tell me you get back something positive, if they give you a check back every year, right, for you renting, let me know. Let me know so I could go to that place and find out what they're doing, right? But when you're renting, you're actually paying off somebody else's mortgage and you're building their equity, okay? Some people might look at it and say, well, when I'm renting, you know, I can get certain things done for myself, right? The apartment can come in and fix certain things. All right, great. They can come in and fix certain things. But again, we're gonna go over certain things so we could change your view on that aspect and start getting into ownership. Okay? Get into ownership. So with that, when you're renting, you're paying down somebody's equity. When you're renting, you're paying somebody mortgage down. When you're also renting, you're building somebody's equity. When you purchase a home, right, you end up with, not all the times, because you could say, well, George, listen, some people buy houses and the housing market crash. Yes, the housing market did crash a few years ago, right? But what happened? Those same people, if they kept their houses are worth way more than it did when the housing market crashed. So what are you telling me? You lose when you sell, right? Just like some people will say in the stock market, you lose when you sell. If they decide to sell their home at a loss, then they decide to sell their home at a loss, right? But when you're talking about building equity, you have to have a strategy behind it. So with this, when you purchase a home, right, going in, for one, you're paying down something. If you have a mortgage, you're paying down a balance. So in that turn, you're building equity. Also, long term, if you think about it, houses do go up in value, right? We hear all these people talk, and we could say, well, I hear Grant Cardone say, rent where you live and buy where you don't want to live. All right, cool. Grant Cardone also had help in the beginning, so he can rent where he wants to live right now and buy houses anywhere he want. He have that type of money. But for somebody that's just starting out, that just have a family and say, well, you know what? I have a regular job. I don't have tons of money. I don't have a family to give me thousands of dollars, $90,000. I don't have my family to say, here's a check, son. Here's thousands of dollars that you could go and put a down payment on. What if you're not that person? What if you're not that lucky? then the next thing you could do is say, listen, you know what? Let me find a home that I can be strategic with to start building wealth. And it doesn't have to be your dream home. A lot of people going into their first home wanting it to be your dream home. Stop doing that, guys. I think that's the worst thing you could do is try to find your dream home at the first one. If you have a family and you're starting out, or if you're single and you're starting out, whoever you are and you're starting out, I think the best thing to do is find a home because you're about to rent anyway. So if you're renting somewhere, it could be nice, right? But you could buy somewhere that's nice as well, or decent enough to where you say, listen, I'm going to buy here and I'm going to live here for a certain amount of time, and then I can sell the property. So say for instance, if you are renting right now and you're paying two, I'm gonna break this down in a simple way for you, right? And I might not do that right now because I'm jumping the gun, right? But say for instance, you buy a property, right? And now you're paying your rent. You're paying your mortgage, right? You're building what? Equity, because you're paying down the mortgage. And at the same time, the value is going up. There in itself, you're building wealth, right? You're building some kind of money that nobody else is giving you. Your landlord is not giving you money back. In turn, if you're ready to move 2 years from now, guess what? When you sell that house and you have built up $30,000 in equity, 4 years ago, if you bought a house 4 years ago, imagine you will have about minimum $50,000 in equity if you bought your house 4 years ago. Again, I'm going to repeat that because sometimes it's hard to believe, right? But if you bought a home 4 years ago and you're living in that home right now, you have a minimum of $50,000 in equity, a minimum, right? So think about that. If you was renting for 4 years up to this day, you have no money to say that, because the person that's watching me right now and you're renting, you have no equity. You have nothing. You're still renting. So there's no equity. There's nothing that you build up in that 4 years. You've only given your money to somebody. Now, that person who decided to take a chance and say, hey, babe, get down and say, I'm going to make this investment. Or it could say, yo, I just want to buy a home. Now you have $50,000 in equity. That $50,000 you could turn around. You could take out equity out of your house. You could go ahead and start a business. You could fund something. You could fund your child's, if your child is going off to college, that could help. As far as your child is going off to college, you could do whatever you want with that money. But if you're renting and you're still renting today, you can't do that. You have to figure out how to come up with that 50,000. So you have to save from your income or do some kind of side hustle to make that 50 grand. So that's one case right there where home ownership trumps you actually saying, all right, let me rent, right? Because it provides me with freedom. All right, cool. It provides you with freedom. You could move whenever you want because you're renting. It's the same thing with a house in the sense that, all right, you might have to sell the house in a certain amount of time, but you still, when you sell that house, you have money that you could now move with. Okay. The next thing is that people will say, well, and I'm going to get a little hit back from this too. It's going to be, well, when you purchase a house, you have different type of mortgages you can get. I don't recommend someone getting a adjustable rate. I do not recommend it unless you're a savvy person. As long as you're going into that with a mindset of you are keeping that house for that amount of time, not even that amount of time, but less than that amount of time, then I agree where you can go ahead and get an adjustable rate. But if you're going into the house not having an exact plan of what to do, I always recommend getting a 30-year fix. Now, with that, you have a stable, and I won't say a stable, but a little bit more stable way of saying, all right, this is what my mortgage is going to be. Now, I said a little bit, guys, so don't come for me because I'm going to explain why I say a little bit. All right. So 30 years fixed mortgage, you say, well, my mortgage is going to be $2,400 a month. So $2,400 a month for the rest of the 30 years, that's what I'm going to pay. No, that's not actually what you're going to pay for for the 30 years. All right. So I'm going to say that, right? Versus when you're renting, rent is not stable. Okay, rent is never stable because I know that for a fact. When the market goes up, guess what? Your rent is going to go up. Okay, your rent is going to go up, and every year that landlord increase your rent, whether it's by 3% or by a dollar amount or 5%, right? But they increase your rent every single year. Now, every year your mortgage also change. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna say that in a sense of, now the difference between us is between a homeowner and a renter is that with a renter your mortgage always go up. Your rent always go up. Your rent don't go down, right? In a sense, where you're a homeowner, your mortgage can go up, but it can also go down. Okay. Now, why can't it go down or why can't it go up? There's two things that's always going to happen every single year. That's your insurance and your taxes. Now, for the last few years, everybody's mortgage has been going up. I don't care who you are, what state you live in, everybody's mortgage has been going up. Why? Because the value of homes went up. So every time the value of homes go up, your taxes get higher. By your taxes get higher, then now the amount of money you paid last year, you need more money to cover that taxes. So your escrow, you're going to have to put more money in your escrow account to cover those taxes. Also, insurance can change. So one year your insurance might stay the same. The next year your insurance can go down, depend on if you shop in insurance or not. A lot of people don't shop mortgage insurance all the time. Okay, they like to just keep that one mortgage insurance. But like this year, again, most people, especially in Florida and in Georgia, insurance went up. All right. So with that factor in, that can change your mortgage as well. But there's years, if the housing market goes down, right? Guess what? Then if the value of the homes drop, then your taxes go down. Now, some people, what they do is they can appeal their taxes. So by appealing your taxes, even though the value of homes went up, you can appeal your taxes and try to keep your taxes at the same level, especially if you're a homeowner, right? Now there's home exemption, all that stuff, but I'm talking about with home exemption that's already factored in. But there's times where if your insurance or your taxes get high, right, you can appeal your taxes. The only thing you could do with insurance is shop insurance just like you shop car insurance. All right. So that's another factor, right? You have a little bit more stability when it comes to, and I won't say a little bit, but that's the difference, right? That's the difference. But again, you're building that equity, right? But you're not gonna go into something where it's getting out of pocket. And if it start getting out of pocket, then you have, just like I said, you can appeal certain processes, as far as you can appeal your taxes to let it stay the same, or you can shop insurance. All right. Number three, the tax benefits. Okay. So the reason why I didn't want to jump the gun with number one and number three is because they both combine with building wealth. All right. So you will have somebody that say, all right, George, you know what? I'm paying less when it comes to rent. Why would I want to go pay more money? And now if something breaks, I have to fix it versus I call my landlord to come fix it. All right, cool. That's nice, right? But again, you're not building any wealth. You're not building anything. You have the convenience of somebody else paying to fix something in your house, right? But now when you take a moment and you say, all right, if you have your own house, right? And you purchase a house, and let's compare apples to apples in a sense. Say, for instance, you have a rent for $2,000 and the mortgage payment on a house that you'll be buying, say, for instance, is $2,500, right? Um, and I'm just using even numbers here. So you have a $500 difference. So you say, why, George, why would I want to go pay $500 more when I can rent the same house for $2,000 and I don't have to fix anything? All right, cool. If that's what you want to do, then great. But again, we're talking about over time building wealth, because if you're paying $2,000, that means that the person that you're renting for, their mortgage is less than $2,000. So you're paying off their mortgage and you're increasing their equity in their home. So you're still doing the same thing. That doesn't change. And you're not getting a check every single year. You're not building anything in every year, right? So you're paying $2,000 for rent while the next person is paying $2,500 for mortgage. Now, with that mortgage, you have a $500 difference. With that mortgage, there's something called mortgage interest that you pay every single year. So, say for instance, you go ahead and you rent this home. I bought a house and I'm paying $2,500 a month. So I'm paying $500 more than you. All right. And you're saying, hi, yo, you paying $500 more. And now I have to fix something in my house if it breaks, all that stuff. Right. All right, cool. Well, the thing is, with mortgage interest, you get to write that off at the end of the year. Right. So when you purchase a home, one of the things that you always pay, especially in the beginning, you pay more interest than you do on your principal, right? Just like buying a car. When you first buy a car, most of your payments is going towards interest. So, say for instance, I pay $2,500 a month, and say for instance I pay $11,000 in mortgage interest, which is it's gonna be more than 11,000, but let me say $11,000 in mortgage interest, right? So that means that $11,000 in mortgage interest, I can now write that off at the end of the year on my taxes. What can the person that's renting write off on their taxes? Nothing, right? So now you say you're saving $500, which you're not really saving technically, because now who's saving money? If you're paying 2,000, I'm paying 500 more than you, right? So that means that at the end of the year, you're saying, well, I'm paying $6,000 more than you. Well, if I'm paying $6,000 more than you, I just saved $11,000 in mortgage interest. So that by itself tells you that, in a sense, there's benefits of you owning a home, while at the same times, that's just me getting interest, get to write off interest. That doesn't count the equity that I might have built in that home. Now, some people might say, yo, not all the time you build equity in your house. Yeah, for the people that bought 2 years ago, that bought a house 2 years ago, when everything was up and they're paying $20,000, 30,000. I've seen where somebody paid $50,000 above asking price. Yeah, those people are not gonna have equity in their homes. They might be right there. The house might be worth the same amount or a little bit less, but they're not gonna have equity in their house right now. Okay, but for the smart investors, or for the people that saying, listen, that happens, that right there happen not all the time, right? But for something that you can do, right, strategically, every single time you purchase a house, it's there for you to take advantage of it. And that's it, your taxes that you'll be able to save on that. So the mortgage interest you could save, right? Anything as far as when it comes to taking care of the house, now you can actually write it off, right? Not saying you can't write off when you're renting an apartment, you have a designated space, but that space in your apartment is a lot less than if you have a house, right? Now they're gonna go off of the size of the house, the area that you use, all that complicated stuff, and that's for the tax person. But I'm saying that you have the advantage of now saving money when it comes to taxes, right? So you get a tax benefit right there. So now you're thinking, well, you're saving money, but I'm actually ending up spending less money than you are, because if you're saying, well, I spend $6,000 more than you because I'm paying for $500 more in rent, but when it comes around to tax time, I can write off $11,000. Well, in that case, I'm spending what, $5,000 or $6,000? No, $5,000 less than you at that point, right? Because 6,000 minus 11,000 leave me with 5,000. So now I'm paying $5,000 less than you because I get to write off $11,000. So those are the things that you have to look at and say, well, that also trumps me renting, because that small thing which helps you um, end up saving money, and then turn around, now you're building equity, right? Those are things that you want to look at. Now, that's just one part of it. What I talk about with tax savings, well, if you live in an apartment, a house, and rent it for 3 years, when you move, you don't get nothing. The landlord is going to miss you if you was a great tenant. If you was a great tenant, you took care of his property even better for him, right? He doesn't have to do anything. He move another person in. Awesome. Great tenant you were, right? Now, think about it the same way. You purchase a house and you live in it for 3 years. Now that house you were paying, you were getting the tax benefits as far as you paying on the mortgage interest, all that stuff. You have a business in your home, you get to write off certain things, your light bill or your internet, all that good stuff, right? Because you had a LLC, you had a business, right? But now when it comes down to it, you built $50,000 over the last 3 years in equity because the market boomed, right? Now, when you sell your house, you had tax benefits that you get to write off. You were paying off equity in the home. You were building equity because you was paying off the balance. And then on top of that, now the house have 50,000 in equity. So all of that said, when you sell the house, you're walking away with $50,000, right? And you probably walk away with more because you built 50,000 in equity, plus you have the other stuff that you gain. So now let's say you walk away with $50,000. Guess what? You're not paying taxes on that $50,000. That's tax-free money that you're walking away with. Why? Because anytime you live in a house for more than 2 years and you sell that house back, you get $250,000 tax-free as a single person. If you are married, you get $500,000 as a married couple, tax-free. So that means that you can run a game with this tax-free. If you're somebody that's always renting, right? What we normally do when we're renting, we normally live in a place no more than what, 4 years, 3 years out. 4 years is I'll say is a lot, right? We normally move in an apartment. When we move in that apartment, we'll say 2 years, 3 years max. Then we say, yo, we're tired of this place. We see a new place over there. We want to go in that new apartment or whatever it is. We want to go in a nice apartment. This apartment is getting old. I want something new. I want something fresh, right? The same thing you could do with a house. You could see a new community going up. Guess what? By you buying that house when the new community is going up, you are, for if you're moving in that existing place and you're the first people to move in, most likely you're going to be building equity, because if you're buying at the low, the other houses coming in, they're going to start increasing those prices of the home, right? So in 3 years, you say, all right, let me go ahead, I buy a house. Just like if you want to go rent, you buy a house. 3 years later, you turn around, you sell that house. If you build 50,000 in equity, you get to walk away with $50,000. Now that same $50,000 you take and you put down on another house, right? And you keep doing the same thing every single time. You don't have to do 3 years. You could do 2 years. You could do 4 years. You could do 5 years. You could do whatever you want, but you have to live in that house for 2 years. Once you live in that house for 2 years, then once you sell that home, the money will be tax-free, right? As simple as that. So when it comes down to it, yes, you living in a home, I don't care what nobody wants to say. Everybody's talking about, home ownership is not, renting is easier, all that stuff. It's a mindset, guys. Most of these people that you see that years ago, what are they transferring more than anything else? They're transferring homes, they're transferring land to their grandkids, to their kids, right? Passing on homes and land to their kids, to where now they're coming in, they have equity, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're handing off to their kids, right? So why not think the same? Why not you can't do the same? But you have to start from somewhere. You have to start from taking action and saying, listen, you know what? Let me get out of this rental mentality. Now, I'm not going to say, listen, you have to rent, or you have to go buy a home, right? Sometimes you're in a spot where you can't buy now. But if you can't buy now, then work on being able to buy, right? But don't make that excuse that I can't buy now. If you're saying I don't have enough money, well, there's programs out there that will provide you with money. There's programs out there that will give you grants that will give you down payment assistance. There are programs out there that you don't have to put no money down at all, right? But you have to look into it. And if you have the right person with you to teach you, to guide you, to let you understand certain things, then you will be able to purchase that house. So now you can start building equity, building wealth, taking tax advantages, right? So you now can move on and create wealth for yourself and your family, right? I'm going to jump into number four. Number four is going to be a little bit more freedom as far as your space itself, right? When you're in an apartment or a home, yeah, you might be able to paint a wall, but when you paint that wall, you have to paint it back. If you change a light in the house, you have to put the light in back. If it's worse than what it was before, you have to definitely put it back, or else you're going to get charged, right? Even if you think that the color that you paint the house in or the apartment is better than what you got it at, guess what? You're going to have to pay them back, or they're going to take your security deposit. Anything you do in that apartment that you feel like you made it better, or in a home that you made it better, it doesn't matter if you feel like you made it better or you did make it better, they're going to take your security deposit back, right? Now, if you live in a house, you could do whatever you want. You could change the lighting out. You could knock a wall out. You could open up the space if you want. You could design a wall if you want. I've went crazy in my house doing all kind of stuff in my house. You guys seen the videos, right? Where if I get bored, or me and my wife get bored, she's like, all right, let's find something to do. The next thing she want me to do is put a fireplace in. So you might see me doing a fireplace. I don't know. Might be, right? But those are the things. It's like you have the freedom to do what you want inside the place that you're living, right? So the reason why we want to move from apartment to apartment or move from place to place is because at some point we get bored as human beings. We get bored of being in the same spot. And if we don't change it around, we might say, yo, you know what? We want to change it around. So let's change up the bedroom so it make us feel like we have a new space, right? You do some kind of stuff to make you feel like, all right, the space is new and you're in a new space, but it's the same place. But now if you have your home, you could do a lot more, and you don't have to worry about, man, somebody's going to tell me or somebody's going to take my money because I'm doing this, even if I think that is better than what I got it at. So in that sense, it's like you're able to do more. You're able to be your creative self inside the place that you spend your time in. You spend most of the time in, right? And then, of course, the last one is going to be long-term investment, right? I don't care what nobody say, right? And everybody investing in real estate, you have to think about what you're doing. You could invest different ways in real estate. There's not one right way to invest in real estate. I'm not gonna tell you that renting where you live and buying where you don't want to live is a wrong thing to do. It's a right thing to do if you have the money to do it. But if you don't have the money to do it, don't be stupid enough to feel like, oh, let me go buy somewhere and only getting $200 a month from that, or cash flowing $300 a month from that. And then if they stop paying me, then now what happens? I have to cover my rent and their, instead of finding somewhere where you can be your own tenant first. Be your own tenant. Be your own landlord of yourself. Practice on yourself first. That is genius to me, right? Be your own landlord. So buy a house and think of it as an investment. I never look at my house like, oh, I always tell my wife, don't fall in love with this space, because this space can go at any time. I look at my homes that I live in as an investment. So at the end of the day, I don't get tied to the house. Anything that I do in my house have to bring some kind of value. If it doesn't bring value, I'm not doing it. Ask my wife on a consistent basis on every time. Does it bring value to the house? No, I'm not doing it. I don't care if you like it, babe. I know I love you too, but I'm not going to do that because it doesn't bring any value to my house. So anytime I'm doing anything, whether it's changing out a fixture in my house that I know looks nice, so when somebody walk in the home, they're going to be like, man, that's beautiful, right? If I put fans in my house, that's different from somebody walking in and just seeing a light bulb stuck to the ceiling, right? If you're talking about me doing my kitchen over, that brings value to my house. If you're talking about me doing a design on the wall, that brings value to my house. So I'm not going to do nothing that does not bring value to my house, right? But also, when I move into a house, I have a plan. And my plan is, if I live in a house for 2 years, at minimum, I'm living in a house for 2 years, no matter what. But once I live in that house for 2 years, at any moment, if I decide I'm ready to go, I'm gone, right? Because the money is tax free. And when I get that money, I can use it to do something else if I want to, right? But don't get attached to a space. So be your own landlord. You can do it. All you have to do, and I'm not telling you to go out and buy your dream house right away. A lot of people get mental block because they're looking at their dream home. Oh, I see this on HGTV, or oh, I see this on Instagram, right? And they see a beautiful house and they want the open concept. They want the high ceilings. They want the big fireplace. They want all this stuff in a new house, and you can't afford it. So because you can't afford what you see on Instagram, you tell yourself, I'm far away from what I'm trying to accomplish, when you're really not. You're only a couple years away from accomplishing that, just by being your own landlord and say, listen, let me go ahead and buy a house that I can't afford right now. Let me build equity. Let me save some taxes. Let me get some tax break on that. If anything, let me house hack, right? Which is going to be a different topic another day. But there's so many things that you could do, and then in turn around, sell that house. And if you make 20 grand on that house when you sell it, so what? If you're in a spot 2 years from now, which every time I say this, you should be working on yourself to become a better version of yourself. So by becoming a better version of yourself 2 years from now, you should, or maybe in a better position. So if you're in a better position where you could buy more house, or you could afford more, it doesn't mean that you go and buy a bigger house. It means that what you could do now, you have options. Now you have option to where you could sell the house, and if you have equity, you could take that and put down on a house. Or you could say, listen, you know what? This could be my rental, and now I can go ahead and purchase another house, and then keep this one, rent this out, get cash flow on it, use that cash flow, build that up, right? Until I can purchase another house. You could do so much, but you have to be strategic, right? So don't follow people out there and say, listen, I need to rent here, buy there. Don't follow people and say, yo, I need to not get this. I need to get multifamily homes, or I need to get, whatever it is, right? The numbers have to work for you. That's why I come back to what I said earlier in the beginning. The numbers have to work for you. And if the numbers work for you in buying a multifamily, absolutely. Because I'm down for that. I'm down for, if you can afford a multifamily, why not buy an apartment? You're living in an apartment. So it's like when you're buying a multifamily, multifamily is classified as anything from a 2 unit to a 4 unit, and is considered a multifamily, right? So you can buy a 2 unit to a 4 unit using 3.5% down, using Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, right? Doing an FHA loan at 3.5%. You can buy those. You can live in one just like you're going and rent somewhere else, and rent out the 4 units, or rent out the other unit. If you don't want to do that, you can also buy a house and rent out the other rooms and live in there the same way. There's so much ways to, when it comes to investing in real estate. There's no right or wrong way, but there's a wrong way by sitting on the sidelines and not doing anything, and giving your money to somebody else while somebody else is building wealth and you're not. So that's why I say home ownership versus renting, which path is the right one for you? And by you listening to this, I hope that it gives you a little bit more clarity. It gives you a little bit more to think about, right? And say, well, you know what? I heard George say a couple things, and maybe I need to sit down with my significant other and talk about this and say, all right, this is what we need to do. So at the end of the day, guys, love you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Whether you're buying, selling a home, or venturing in real estate investing, I'm here to help and assist you in any way I can. Reach out to me. I'll give my expert guidance in anything that I can do to help you. If you want to DM me or reach out to me privately, go ahead. If not, you could comment ready on the video. I'll be going through my comments later. So, guys, have a blessed and wonderful evening. Talk to y'all later.